Hello everyone, this is Free Name on YouTube. This is a comprehensive video about the web admin interface of the TalkTalk Wi-Fi Hub 3, and in this instance it's the business variant of the Wi-Fi Hub 3. Every router has its own unique admin password, which is on the label on the back of the router, so you can't just Google for the default password. You definitely need the information from the back of the router. The username is admin, and then the password from the back of the router. Once you're logged in, you're greeted with a bunch of squares which give you various functions. We're going to go through absolutely every single one, but on the screen here, just scrolling down, is what the first page after you've logged in looks like. If you're wanting to get to a specific section, have a look at the description of this video, because it will take you to exactly where you want to go, for example the DHCP settings or the DNS settings or whatever it is, if you don't want to watch the whole video. So I'm going to click on the cog on the first box, which is Wi-Fi Hub 3, where it says configure DHCP and DNS, and it will take you to a status page which gives you a load of information like the serial number of the router, the hardware version, software version, uptime of the router, MAC address, its LAN IP address and its internet address, and further down the SSID and wireless security that the router is using. Interestingly, it doesn't tell you the wireless channel, which is, I'd say, an oversight for this status page. Moving on from the device info general screen onto the LAN IPv4 screen. You get the hostname, which you don't seem to be able to edit, the IP address, subnet mask, and the DHCP range that the router will give out to clients. IP address reservation for your DHCP leases. So if we go to add a reserved address, we can either select a device that's already on the LAN and reserve it, or you can fill in the MAC address and the IP address that you want it to be given. And then scroll down and click on apply. And now that should have added that reservation. And then we can delete it if we want. And then you don't need to click on apply. If you do delete one, it just deletes it straight away. Scrolling back up and clicking on light control, there is a single LED on the front of the router, and you can turn it off and turn it on, which would be useful if the router is in a location where the light would be annoying. For example, if it's in a bedroom or somewhere where you don't want a light to be visible. Clicking on DNS is what the DHCP server would give out as DNS servers to clients. This screen would be useful if you have your own Active Directory server or something on your network and you wanted all of the clients to use that server. If you did change this to, for example, OpenDNS 1.1.1.1 or whatever custom DNS server as the server directly on those clients, changing this would not change what the router forwards requests onto. Under 9DNS, where if you do not have a static IP address from TalkTalk, you can use 9DNS, no IP, or a custom server to update a hostname to always point to your dynamic IP address. Under routes, you can add static routes. And interestingly, it seems to have forcibly added the DNS servers that the PPP server is giving out with a static route automatically. Under the maintenance tab, you can restart the router remotely and also initiate a factory reset back to default settings. You can give it a firmware file to update, although almost certainly TalkTalk will never provide you a firmware file, and all of the firmware that they will want to update will be initiated remotely. You can set the NTP servers that it gets its time from. And interestingly, by default, the logs on this are set to do debug and lower severity, which is quite interesting. And we can definitely tell from this log that TalkTalk do remotely administer the router using the TR069 protocol or auto configuration. So that is how they would initiate settings updates if they needed to, or firmware updates if they wanted to ship those to customers. That's everything within that first section. So I'm going to press the home button and then we're going to look at the access control section. By default, it puts you in the port forwarding screen where you can add port forwards. So let's try adding one. By default, it has UPnP enabled. That is what game consoles and also torrent applications and some other peer-to-peer stuff will use to automatically forward ports through to themselves. If you're security conscious and you don't want devices and software on your network to be able to port forward, then automatically without you knowing, then you may want to turn that off. And then adding rules manually, so this is if you wanted to run a server within your network. So for example, I'll do an SMTP server. We can select SMTP here and it'll fill some of these in for us, but I'm going to do this as if it's a service that isn't in the template. So it's TCP for SMTP, it is port 25 and port 25 internally, and I want to send it through to 192.168.1.100, which for example might be my mail server, and then click on add. Oh, except it doesn't like spaces in the name there. It would have been nice if it told me that when I was typing it. Add, and there we go. That is how you port forward through to devices in your network. If you wanted to restrict it so that only one particular thing on the internet, so like your friend's IP address or something that you know is going to connect in and you don't want other people to find that open port, then you could fill in your friend's IP address like 87.56.44.90 and only that person would be able to get through to that service. Moving on to the firewall tab. By default, it does not respond to ping on the internet IP address or the WAN port. I think that's a really silly idea for diagnostics, or if you want to use the Think Broadband monitoring for reliability and performance monitoring. Turning on pings is not really a particular security risk. It does mean that somebody can tell that your connection's online, but other than that, it doesn't let them do anything. It doesn't let them know what websites you're going to or anything. So it's totally fine, in my opinion, to turn on respond to ping on the internet port. Firewall is on medium by default, whatever that does. It allows everything except your computers, your Windows computers, attempting to connect out to file shares on WAN IPs. I guess that is to reduce the chance that a TalkTalk connection will be used to initiate some kind of worm. I think it's like the Nimda worm, maybe, back in XP days, where using NetBIOS file sharing, a virus basically went around the world. If this was enabled at that time for most people, it would have slowed the spread of that virus. And in high mode, it will block everything except these known services, which is a bit strange because in medium mode we are allowing everything except NetBIOS, but in high security mode we are allowing all these, including NetBIOS. So actually going into high security mode allows a fairly insecure service that shouldn't really be enabled. But bizarre. Most of the time, there should be never any reason to change this anyway. There's no particular reason why you should be doing NetBIOS over the internet, so having it in medium default mode is fine. And if you really wanted to control what's allowed in and out granularly on your network, I wouldn't say you'd be using this router anyway, but this is what the custom mode looks like. And adding rules into the custom mode going on to the DMZ tab, this basically port forwards every single port on your WAN through to a machine on the LAN. So a lot of game advice when people say, oh, I'm getting bad NAT messages or other things like that, say to go into DMZ and enable that for your game console or for your computer. That's a really lazy way of solving the problem. Basically allows everything through to your computer, whether it's for the game, whether it's a virus or any other things that potentially could be attempting to connect in. What you really would like to do there is not use DMZ and actually find detailed instructions on which specific UDP and TCP ports that you would want to add under the port forwarding screen, rather than using DMZ. Under the user tab, you can change the password that you log into the router with, so that the one that's on the back of the router is not the correct one. So, say if this is in a shop and you didn't want somebody to walk up to the router and read the admin password and then start changing settings, this is where you change the password so that it was something custom that only you know. Multi-NAT is probably for a static IP range that TalkTalk will give out. I don't have one, so I can't test this or show you what it would do. Moving on to the Internet Connectivity tab, or box, whatever you want to call them on here. It's got the WAN type, which by default is PPP, and auto-config at TalkTalk Business, or if it was TalkTalk Residential, it's probably got a similar equivalent generic logon. And you can change it to DHCP or static, and turn on VLAN tagging, which is enabled by default. Under IPv4 DNS, this is probably where you should change the DNS servers. So if you want to be using 1.1.1.1, you would rather change them here and then apply it than use the, so if I'm going to click away from this, because the other option of changing it was under the first tab under LAN IPv4, DNS here. This changes the DHCP DNS servers given to clients and doesn't change it on the router. The better way of doing it is in Internet Connectivity DNS IPv4, which means that all the devices still stay pointed at the router for their DNS, and then the router goes off to these custom DNS servers to do the lookup and then returns it to the computer or the client. Scrolling down to the wireless section, I'm going to click on band 1, so the 2.4 GHz first, which interestingly takes you to a page which has 2.4 in the address, but also shows you the 5 GHz settings. So nowhere on this router interface has it told me what channel the wireless is on, other than potentially in that logging section. But on the status page and on the front page, it doesn't say what channel the wireless is using, which is very strange and very obscure. So on this page, we have the 2.4 and the 5 GHz settings, where you can change the name of the device and the channel if you wanted it to be on a manual channel that you select. Be aware that if you select anything above probably channel 48, you're moving into what I think it's called DFS channels, which some devices are unable to use. Further down the page, you can also change the security type. By default, it's on WPA2, which is, I think, fair. I've definitely had several routers and several enterprise access points set to WPA3 or WPA3 transitional, which is supposed to be WPA3 plus WPA2 compatible. And so many devices, mainly iPhones and Android phones, just drop off the network, don't reconnect until you go and click on it. WPA3 really compatibility does not seem to be there somehow yet. So I wouldn't recommend selecting WPA3 unless you definitely knew that all the devices that you're going to connect to the network work with it reliably. And then you can change the wireless password as well. Scrolling up and clicking on wireless mesh, presumably they could also supply you with Wi-Fi repeaters. I don't have one, so I'm not going to be able to show you much about that anyway. And moving on to the WPS screen, you can enable and disable WPS, so the button that's on the side of the router, so that people can't accidentally, or maybe accidentally, but connect something to the router without knowing the password. So if you've set a custom password that isn't the one that's on the label on the back, and somebody went to their Windows computer and tried to connect it, it would offer, by default, that if they could find the router and press the WPS button, that it would connect them without them needing the password. So you can turn it off. On this screen, it looks like you have to turn it off for both 2.4 and 5 GHz, but that would prevent the button from functioning like that. Under Wi-Fi Advanced, you get the wireless mode plus the bandwidth, which is basically the radio space that the wireless is able to take up. So on 20 MHz, you will see roughly half the speed than if you selected 40 MHz. And under 5 GHz, we get an additional option to do with extension channel. Under MAC filtering, you can allow or deny certain wireless devices to connect to your network. However, filtering by MAC address is a very insecure way of controlling who can get to your network. It's very easy to change the MAC address on a device. You're much better off changing the password and not telling the people you don't want to connect the new password. Moving on to the wired connected devices section. It does show you the link state of the 4 LAN ports, and something's not quite right there because it's got 0 packets, 0 bytes for the WAN port, which definitely has something plugged into it, and the LAN port, which my laptop is plugged into, but weirdly it has some counters on the LAN port that I'm not plugged into. So I'm not sure whether they've got the ports and the numbers, so the port numbers versus the stats, lined up correctly in their firmware there. Going back to the home section, we're nearly at the end. We've got the booster, but that's basically what we've been through in the wireless. So that is every single admin page of the TalkTalk Business or TalkTalk Wi-Fi Hub 3. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and if it has, it would be really helpful to me if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my YouTube channel. You don't need to have the video notifications switched on, but the subscriber numbers do really help, so thank you very much. Also, if you'd like a video on how to factory reset this router and what it looks like on the back with all the connectors and the buttons on the left, etc., there'll be a video linked in the description which will take you to those other ones I've made.